Okay, and if you guys are ready, I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Lightning Lunch. This is a partnership between the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering. I hope you guys can see and hear me okay. If you have any problems, you can put your technical problems in the Zoom group chat. And we also have a document where you can put your questions, and we'll have a Q&A going on while I present. And the link to that document is in the chat. If you don't see it, just shoot a message and we'll resend it. Welcome. Remember to mute yourself if you're not talking, but feel free to unmute yourself to ask questions. We hope we can answer all of your questions during this lightning lunch. And then feel free to use the Zoom group chat anytime. It's not rude. I can barely even notice it. So go ahead and just put your questions, comments in the group chat. So a little format is we try to do this daily, and they run about from 12 to 12:30, and they'll have time for both the presentation / demo and then your questions. And your questions don't even have to be related to student feedback. They can be about whatever you like. To introduce ourselves, I'm Lucy Wolski. I'm the Instructional Design Specialist for the School of Geographical Sciences and Urban Planning. I'm with the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and with me, helping me out, is Jen. Jen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm an instructional designer with the Fulton Engineering in the Global Outreach team, and I am Vanna to Lucy's Pat today.
I know that reference. So what we're going to cover today is just some ideas for collecting student feedback, specific questions you can ask, what to do with the feedback once you get it, and then a couple of tools that you can use to collect student feedback. So our goal is using the student feedback to inform our instruction and promote learning. All right, we'll start with 3 ideas. You might have heard of these. One is called the Stop, Start, Continue, and it's a poll with 3 questions: what students think you should start doing, what students think you should stop doing, and what students think you should continue doing. Another idea is called the Point of View postcard, and you ask them to finish the sentence. For example, I learned the most in class when we ... And that way you can get some data about how they learn. This is a very common one. This one's called the muddiest points. Have you heard of this one? I bet some of you have heard of this one. It asks, what is the most confusing part? You know, what is the part that is the least clear? So that you, as the instructor, have time to redeliver that information in a different way, or just, you know, address, you know, what is confusing for some or what is confusing for few. This is a great tool to use, is the muddiest points. I got some more ideas for you. How about a 1-minute paper? This asks students to respond briefly to the questions: what was the most important thing you learned in class today? And what important question remains unanswered? So again, you're getting at the muddiest point, and you're getting at what they've learned. The exit ticket is one of my favorites. You can use polling questions that are tied to the objective of the lesson. So you'll find out, did they in fact do this particular objective? Skill, concept, knowledge, what the objective of the lesson is, you can ask questions directly related to that and find out if it was effectively, you know, gained. This one's a personal favorite of mine. They're all my favorites. I can't pick a favorite. The open course eval. You leave this course eval open from start to finish. You don't wait till the end. You don't do a mid-survey. You leave it open. And what it does is it gives students a voice and a platform to express their opinions on the course. And sometimes, yeah, there might be some complainers, but giving them that voice is quite empowering, and it might actually satiate some of the angst they might be feeling. So again, I always put it in my courses. that I helped design, and you get a chance to review it as you're teaching to either address it or not before it's too late. So here's what the button looks like. Course evaluations, click this button to go to course evaluations. More on this later. I think this is my last idea. It's the mid-course survey. So I think we're past the midpoint, but you could do it, you could do it now. But it collects feedback on the course before the official course eval, and you have more control over what questions are asked. So in this example, I'm not sure how clear it is, but you can ask in this kind of matrix, about specific things. So let's see, course map. So this particular example uses a course map, and we're going to ask our students, hey, we spent the time creating this course map. Does it matter? And we'll find out. We'll say, I strongly agree that it was helpful, or I don't care. I disagree that it was helpful. So anywhere on that range there. Oh wait, I lied. There's one more example of student feedback is very text specific. So if you're using a specific tool like Zoom or Slack, or in this example, we piloted a LumaDesk, you ask questions specific to that tech. So in this example, there's a page all about a LumaDesk, and then there's a survey. Was it helpful to your learning? So do you guys want to hear some specific questions to ask? I assume so, because you're all here. So I like to do a mix of quantitative and qualitative questions. So the quantitative ones might be Likert scale questions. How satisfied are you? How challenging has this course been? How reasonable has the course workload been? And so on. And then qualitative questions, essay type questions. What was the most helpful? Be specific. Describe the tool that you were most engaged with. What suggestions do you have to enhance your learning experience in this class? And then this one's probing a little deeper. So let's say we ask, do you find this course challenging? And they say, yeah, I find it very challenging. You can then prompt them with more info, like you mentioned that this was challenging. Please explain what you would like to see differently. So that I think is much more useful data than, wow, 60% of my students think that my instructions weren't clear. Now I don't know what to do with that. This will give you a little more data about how to fix it or what specifically is tripping them up. So remember that course eval that I mentioned that's open from start to end? Mine just has 4 questions. It says, what was the most valuable thing you learned? Which activities were the most effective at helping you learn? Which were the least effective? And what suggestions do you have? Another thing I like to do is in my description, I'll tell them how I'm going to use it or not. So realistically, you might not have time to make drastic changes while your course is, live. So you can just say that. You can say, I might not be able to fix things right away, but this might help future iterations of the course. Or, your ideas may help. May not, but they may. So I try to be transparent with them. I'm not going to overpromise that whatever they say I'm going to fix, because that's not realistic. Here's some questions I use for tech-specific tool. How easy was it to use Slack? How likely are you to recommend Slack to a fellow student? How easy was it to find support resources on Slack? Did Slack contribute to your learning? That's a good one. That one I might ask a couple of times in a couple different ways to make sure that it is, because if it's not, nix it. In your own words, what are things you like most about Slack? Or what can we improve about Slack? Or about how we use Slack in this course. Okay, so you got some data, now what? You could be transparent with the data, summarize it and share. Like 64% of you didn't think that this material was too challenging. And that descriptive, summary data is kind of helpful to both groups who thought it was challenging, both in the groups that didn't. Tell students what you're going to do with that data. And this encourages students to reflect on and adjust their own learning strategies. So you might say something like, based on the feedback that you guys gave me, I think that the exams are too hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow 2 attempts, or 10 minutes longer or something. Model lifelong learning and resiliency. Admit when something's not working. So, I tried Slack as a way to give you guys a chance to, collaborate. I hear loud and clear that you guys aren't liking the tool. I'm going to try being on it more regularly. I'm going to try awarding points for people who answer student questions. Some instructors make an FAQ based on a lot of the feedback they're getting. Some more tips of what you can do with this feedback, or just more tips. Get feedback from colleagues. Document your teaching practices using like a teaching journal. Look for patterns, to find common errors, what needs to be reviewed or retaught, and then just build that into your course. So if you were to do a muddiest point type of survey, and then you get a lot of feedback, and then just go ahead and clarify that in a different modality. So make a video on that muddiest point. Or you could very well do nothing. That is an option. Sometimes you collect the feedback just in case, just in case you can do something about it, just in case you need it, just to give them a voice to complain. You don't have to take action. Sometimes it's just good to, start collecting feedback and collect at each iteration. I'd like to share with you my 3 favorite tools for collecting student feedback. There are others, but these are my faves. Using an anonymous Canvas survey. So you can make it worth points or no. Throw them some points that might make them more likely to do it. But there is a little button here to make the submissions anonymous. I'm not sure it's 100% anonymous. So again, just be transparent. Say, we're trying to make this survey anonymous by enabling the anonymous feature. Please provide, feedback. Another one of my favorites is a Google form. I think this is an example from one of the classes that our very own Drew created. But this is just a Google form, and it embeds quite nicely in Canvas. So you can put it into the modules, or you can just send a link to the form in an announcement. Couple of pro tips. If you do use Google Form, I might recommend that you don't collect email addresses and don't restrict user types. There's these 2 settings in Google Forms where you can do those things, but don't do it. That way it makes it easier for students to give the feedback. Less obstacles they have to overcome in order to give you feedback. And that's it for me. But I would love to answer any questions you guys have, or have a conversation about anything you want. So feel free to unmute yourself, ask any questions during the conversation.
So Lucy, what have you been hearing from your faculty in response to the remote teaching now that we've been in it for, almost a month now?
Yeah, is this week 4? Yeah.
So what are you hearing from your faculty?
Not a lot. They're very quiet, which makes me think that they are powering through. Occasionally I'll get some questions about lockdown browser or final assessment, but no, it's been mostly silence for my faculty. How about you?
We've actually heard a lot of good things from faculty. I think some things are going better than many expected. There's definitely challenges, but like with you, one of the big things that comes up has to do with proctoring. Mm-hmm. And I think, the key with any of these things is, like you said, getting feedback from the students as to how they're perceiving what you're doing, because you're used to having them in that face-to-face arena where you can see their eyeballs and if they're falling asleep or not. And I think faculty are figuring out more and more how to do that, but it is new.
Yeah. And just a shout out to our previous lightning lunches. There is one all about proctoring. So we've posted that to our YouTube channel for faculty who need help with online proctoring, especially for their high stakes exams.
Hi, Lucy and Jennifer. So just anecdotally, how are you feeling like the students are responding? Because anecdotally, I've just heard some things from, again, sample of 2 students that the technological skills of the faculty are, sometimes of course, a bit less than the students. For example, one student, his professor would send out 7 Zoom links, and they had to, for each class, and they had to jump into each Zoom to find out where the professor actually was.
No.
A few other complaints I've heard is about professors thinking that having the perception that online learning was easier, and so dumping a lot more work on the students to make up for the easy thing. What are you hearing from students?
It's a good question. One place that I look is the ASU subreddit, and there have been some horror stories. So to try to circumvent that bad experience, I might tell my faculty, don't put more technology to solve the problem. Sometimes more tech just makes it feel like more pressure, right? More weight. So going from taking a pencil and a paper to videos and browsers, and that I'm feeling tense just thinking about it. So thinking of other ways of making, your high stakes assessments still, good. We're not trying to dumb it down, but anything to not increase their stress level.
Yeah, and I'm sure Reddit, has all the horror stories, right?
Yes, there's some complainers.
Most of the happy, contented people, would never go there, right? So
that's a good point
as well.
One more thing I'd like to demo is you can also poll your Zoom class. Can everyone see on their screen a poll? Yeah, so this is another way you can quickly poll your synchronous Zoom class to find out if they got the main takeaway, or if they're, if they're present, engaged, getting it. So you can do this at the end of the class, or maybe in the middle of the class, just to kind of pulse check, just to check in with them. So thank you all for voting.
I was just going to say, if I can jump in real fast about as far as students and technology and things. One of the things I learned early on is you can't make certain assumptions about what tech people do have and use, even if it's something say as simple as Word. Because I have an exam tomorrow, and one of the things I'm going to be doing is I have a template that they have to fill in and use for their kind of project. And I'm like, I better send out these are all this is the list of things you should have. You need your calculator, you need some paper beside you, and by the way, you're going to use a Word doc. So you need to be able to do something with that. And so one guy emailed me and said, well, I don't have any kind of Word, or I don't use that for whatever reason. But I throw it into Google Docs. Will that work? So I had to check and make sure that was going to be okay, and because it's very formatted. So that was fine. But this is just there's a lot of communication, and even just something well, I need you to make a screenshot. So if you don't know how to make a screenshot on your computer, I'd really appreciate that if you figure that out in the next 24 hours. So it's just kind of an interesting little bit of a minefield we're going through. I tell you though, the one thing that I absolutely love is the being able to have the breakout rooms. Because if we didn't have the breakout rooms, I mean, first of all, the class I have that switched to online is project-based. And so then I can throw, all the people in one group into, and could check in with them. But it's also just nice, like, one of the things we would do oftentimes at the beginning of class is just like, well, here's what we talked about before, figure it out, like, the 5 most important things, or like, you do this calculation. And just, you jump in there with them through the different groups. You can assign those randomly. But it's also nice just like to check in and make sure people are still there. And just like to have people see their faces and things. So like the group, the breakout rooms have just been like, if that didn't exist, then it would be so much more miserable for a class.
A couple of things to add to that. One is, yes, it's always a good idea to know what technology your students have and what they're familiar with. So it's always good to ask well enough ahead of time if you're going to do something that requires the technology. And also to always set up maybe a practice, or if you're using a new technology, even if you don't have time to really set up like a whole scenario ahead of time, maybe you embed a couple practice questions or something in there so that they get a chance to kind of get their feet wet beforehand. And also with Word products, ASU, I believe, through student accounts, they can get Microsoft 365. So they have it available to them. They just probably don't know. So some of it is also us finding out what resources are available to our students, especially with the information deluge that's going on, and helping curate some of that information for them.
Totally. And I'd also like to say, if we're trying out new things, Google Assignments. So Canvas has an integration with Google Assignments. So you can give them out a pre-filled form, give it to them. They'll go in and fill out, the pieces, and then turn it back into you, all using Google Docs. So, maybe not now, but the next convenience you have, tinker with that, experiment with that, because students are using Google Docs, I'm pretty sure. If there's any more questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, you're welcome to hop off. It was really great seeing you guys.
Or you're welcome to sit here and share horror stories or successes.
I'll be here for a couple, 10 more minutes or so, but yeah, hop off if you want to. Bye.
Thank you, Lucy. Great ideas. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, Lucy. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. The stop, keep, start feedback you mentioned at the very beginning is something that I've used myself.
Yeah.
And with our teachers, I asked them kind of a week or two into the remote instruction to do that with their classes as well. And we got some good feedback because it was a good opportunity for us to say, we're all new at doing this. What are we doing well and what aren't we doing? What are we missing that you need? And so that's been really helpful. And
Good
then
to know.
the Google
feedback you can share with us.
Sorry, that everything was going pretty well, actually. I think the feedback we got from the students that was most interesting was that they realized they needed help learning self-management strategies because they didn't sign up for an online class, and so this was all new to them, and they were recognizing that it was on their side challenging to coordinate and organize their new learning experience. Yeah.
And that goes also, as instructors, and you feel responsible for your students, and so you constantly are probably thinking, well, how do I set this up in a way that makes the most sense to them? And hopefully, you're able to leverage your Canvas shell and some of those aspects for them, hopefully, to help guide them with the calendar or assignments or.
Right, and that was the other thing that we learned too, very similar to that, was that just keep it simple as possible. And I think Lucy mentioned too that, we don't have to find the latest, coolest tool just because we're now online, to find out what has worked for you in the classroom and then figure out what's the simplest way to get this across in an online environment.
Yeah, that's I love that you said that. The magic word is pilot. So if you really do want to try the latest, greatest, high-tech, snazzy feature, go for it. I love trying new things, but call it a pilot. Let students know that we're trying it. Make it optional, collect feedback on it. And that way, when you teach it again, you'll know whether or not it's worth it.
That's a great idea. I like that. I'm going to steal that.
And you also, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Andrea, go for it. Or was it Jennifer?
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say, and just like you said, keep it simple. You know, a lot of instructors, if especially you don't tend to use the Canvas shell a lot, being a face-to-face class, if you switch to the online and all students are using the shell, you know, just take a moment to clean up the side navigation even and hide things that you're not going to be using. That can do a world of good for your students as well.
Yes, the little, you know, low-hanging branches, that and adding your Canvas profile image it won't replicate the face-to-face, but it really helps with that instructor presence in Canvas. And it takes, you know, 60 seconds to set up.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Oh, sure. What I was going to say was, you know, it's interesting. So I have a class, again, we went from a hybrid course to the online 4 weeks ago. And I just thought they were going to be devastated that Monday, right? Because we do a lot of collaborative problem-based and project-based enhanced language learning, PBEL, Teachers College project work. So I thought, how are we going to try to replicate this online, right? What kind of socio-tech tools can I find to make this work? But they were just so excited and happy. And I can tell you right now, you know, I sometimes show tech tools, like I demonstrate to them how to use things. I think it was Andrew or Drew that mentioned that some of the students don't know how to use some of the screen capture tools. So I modeled how to use Snippet. Speaking of 365, like, okay, guys, this is how you do it, because someone asked about it. So I just stopped what I was doing, because I do my courses in a Zoom face-to-face sort of format, remote. And so they're at Tovar, you know, help with this. And so I just showed them how to do it, like on the spot. So I think they appreciate that. But I also use a lot of screencast-o-matics, where I just create stuff going, you know what, I have something coming up next week. I don't know if they're going to know how to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and create this so they can see what it looks like. And hopefully that will, you know, mitigate some of the concerns. And, well, I didn't get it done because I didn't understand because. So I think those tools have been really helpful. And, you know, now we're wrapping things up. We're going into our assessment chapter in this course, our last, not chapter, but module. And I'm just thinking of all the different tools that I can play with during this coming week with them. And I'm going to conduct, thank you, Lucy, like a survey. I start the semester with a Google survey. I think I'm going to use a Canvas survey. So thanks for showing us how that's created. And just ask them which tools, now that we're coming to the end, what would you like to tinker with? And let's just kind of play with that during assessment, during that assessment module, kind of change things up just a little bit. So I love the surveys and, you know, doing a little bit of, you know, pilot research work. Well, we have an opportunity. This is the perfect opportunity to conduct some of our own research, right? With obviously the proper permission.
Yeah, and you can quantify your, you know, your videos that you make by asking them, were these helpful? You know, was this video on, were these how-to videos helpful, yes or no?
Yeah, I like, again, you have some very simple, you know, quantitative, qualitative questions that you can ask. And I really appreciate you doing that work and sharing it with us. Thank you.
You bet, thank you.
And I want to say hi to Andrea Harrow, by the way. I'm taking your TESOL class. Yours
Oh my
and
goodness.
right now, because I have time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's one of my teachers.
That's great.
You're wearing that really cool maroon shirt with the silver necklace, I think, in the foundations class. I'm like,
wow.
that's so cool.
I'm just in the foundations class. After that, you'll see Jessica. She's awesome.
Oh, and you're gonna go like once you like go into grade, you're gonna go, I know who that is now. So good
It's
stuff.
nice to meet
Thank
another.
you.
Are you an Andrea or Andrea or?
It depends what language. I speak 3 languages, so
Okay.
you know it's Andrea, Andrea, whatever
Oh, perfect.
language.
Same. Yeah, I'll answer to anything, but
Sure.
I'm usually Andrea.
Right here.
I've learned that with Jennifer, even though there's really only one way to, whichever the others aren't going by.
It's tricky when you have names that begin with a vowel or end with a vowel, because depending on the language, it could be 3 different vowel sounds on the vowel.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to have these lightning lunches, so that they're, you know, short, but it's also a chance for people to chat about what's working well for them and not working well for them across disciplines, because we can put our little silos and not see what's working for other people, or just in time, I just need to know how to do this.
Yeah, I'm thankful for, you probably know who he is, Rodney Gemmell. He
Mhm.
sent out through Teachers College, like all these links to all these other, like in this case, the engineering department, right? We have the liberal arts represented now. I had no idea all this stuff was going on, you know, and he's got these links and now I have these calendars and greater access. So this has really, I think, pushed the access tech button for a lot of folks. So it's cool stuff.
Yeah, I like how they've consolidated that one calendar so we can see kind of what everyone's doing. The one that's on the toolkit page.
Yeah, that page. Is it the teaching and learning workshops or something like that?
Could be.
Something.
Yeah, I know it's been embedded in a couple of places, but it feeds from that one central calendar so we can all see what everyone's doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much. Lucy, we're going to have access to your presentation.
Yeah, I'll figure out a way.
Okay, cool. And I'm just going to snap your Slack channel there. And then you had mentioned a YouTube channel. Is that in the chat box? It probably is. I see there's some.
Yeah, but I can put it in again. It's
Okay, cool.
fairly new, so let me know if this link doesn't work and we can, but it's
Okay.
ASU Lightning Lunches.
Cool. I'm just going to download the chat. We'll get it.
And I'll put together the slide deck and the YouTube link and I'll email it out.
Cool.
And Lucy, did you mention that there was a proctoring lightning lunch at some point that I might have missed?
There was, and if you go to the YouTube channel, it was on April 10th that it was uploaded.
Was it the one on course analytics? Because that's the only one I'm seeing.
No, I had to refresh my browser a couple of times for it to show up, but it's called proctoring options. And there's also some toolkits available on the Provost site for teaching. So if you go to provost.asu.edu, they're all just
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
There's some documents there about proctoring that are very good.
Well, Lucy, can I ask you a quick question? It's about the polling instrument. I tried setting up a poll and I thought I'm going to use it. This was on last Wednesday's class. I forgot all about it. Is it still sitting there where I can just kind of throw it back out there, or do you have to recreate the poll, right before each class? How does that work with the polling? How do you
It should still
integrate?
be there as long as you use the same meeting link.
Yeah, because we all have that same room, right? Their classroom, Zoom room. Okay, so it'll be sitting in that space. So to launch it, is there like I haven't gotten that far yet. Is there a launch button?
There is a launch button on your control, your toolbar.
Okay.
And one little tip that might help is I have a checklist. So I make sure I record the meeting, I make sure I launch the poll. And what I do is I pull up I have two screens.
Okay.
It's really helpful because that way you can pull up the poll on one screen and just be ready. Just launch, and it reminds you because you're looking at it.
I have a second screen back there that I haven't integrated yet, but I'm just kind of one step at a time. I'm waiting for my green screen to arrive, ordered that. Everything's delayed on Amazon, as you know. But okay, so get that second.
I delayed to get mine too set up, but working on one is just so much harder to share screens and monitor chats and everything else.
Yeah, it's been a challenge. So thank you for that extra tip. I appreciate it. All right, cool. Thank you. And so there will be a tally of my different polls, kind of like every meeting. There's a list of the meetings. The polls kind of work exactly the same way.
Exactly. And then when you go to launch your poll, you get to choose which one. I think you have a maximum of 25. Though,
Okay.
So you can't go over 25.
Per class or total?
Per meeting room link.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, got it. Okay, so it'll keep track of those and you create them. I created mine right before class. And, honestly, I didn't even know if it's saved anywhere. I just assumed that it must have. And I just thought I'd go to that little button and it would magically appear to my students. So,
Yep.
Okay.
And test it out first, do a test for the people who are first in the room,
and see if it's visible. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of your help.
You bet.
Cool. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks all. We'll see you.
Thanks all for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good week.
You too.
I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.
Nice job, Lucy.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you.